Peace and power, beautiful souls. It is your girl Big Ma, and this is the Big Ma experience where we glow, flow, and grow together. Hi, welcome to the Big Ma experience. As I said, it's me, Big Ma, and I'm here with a quick, one again, just to give you guys some tea. I usually give you tea on my life and then also do some real life lesson type shit. Anyways, today we're going to be talking about sober me versus not so sober me. Yes, if you've known me for a long time, you knew, you knew I'd never joked with a bottle or a smoke. I never joked with a bottle or a smoke. Anybody who's known me from my uni days, my entertainment days, you will know. Like, if that party is turned, I'm definitely with a bottle or two. And I ain't talking beer, baby, I'm talking liquor. We drink it straight over here. Well, we used to. And these days, I'm very sober. And I thought it was about time for me to share that journey with y'all. And why don't you just stick around and we'll get right into it. So if you're wondering, why am I talking about, sober me versus intoxicated me? Well, it's because a lot of people who actually know me or know of me have only known the intoxicated side of me. They've never known the sober side of me. And I'd like to make some things clear, because some people actually think they know me. But I'm gonna, clear up some myths about me, some untruths about me, and I'm gonna make it as brief as possible because I ain't got time to be spilling on this shit about this. This is an old, part of my life that I've let go, but some people wouldn't let it go. So how about I help them let go? Okay. Mhm. Now, for me, I started drinking. I remember in uni. I remember I bought my first. Who remembers Don Simon Vino Tinto? Yeah. I bought my first pack myself. Back then it was 600 naira. My God, this was I'm talking this was 2005, 2006. It was 600 naira. I bought a pack for myself on an empty stomach. I locked myself in my room and I'm like, let me find out what this thing is everybody's drinking and talking about. Now, I've never been one that can be easily influenced. Everything I have done because I wanted to, not because anybody made me do it. And a lot of people know that for a fact. And then some people actually lie and say, I influenced them. I have never, ever, and I stand on this. I would love someone to prove me wrong. I have never tried to make anyone drink, smoke, or nothing because it's not my place to do that to you. I made these decisions for myself because I wanted to. But a lot of people saw because Big Man does it, let me also go do it. Then they go out and lie and say I made them do it, which is crazy because I've never made anyone do anything. In fact, the only time I've tried to force anyone to do anything is to heal, and they still made me pay for it. That's the only time because I know how beneficial it is. But I digress. Anyways, I started drinking as far back as 2005, 2006, and I trained myself on how to drink. And I realized I could handle my liquor. Like I've had people try to go in competition on the bottle with me. They lost. They always do. I mean, there's a lot to store in this excess package, and you think you can beat this? Come on, darling. Anyways, I'm not trying to encourage you guys to go on a drinking binge. It's just who I used to be. I mean, I can still appreciate who I was without having to taint who I am right now. But over the years, I noticed that, my drinking, then along the line, I started smoking. I realized it affected me in certain ways, and those are the ways I want to talk about. And to tell you the difference of who I was then and who I am now, and how I see the difference in my life. Now, I'm not saying that because I'm sharing this, you have to quit whatever you're doing. We all have a different journeys. This was mine. For many years, I drank. For many years, I was high. But I let it go because I needed to. And I just want to tell you the differences of how it affected me mentally, physically, sexually, and even spiritually. So hang around. I'm going to wrap it up, tell you all about it. Now, for me, mentally, yeah. I remember, I think I was diagnosed in 2018 with bipolar disorder type 2. I've talked about this many times. I do not have it anymore, thanks be to God. But I remember that The same day I was diagnosed, the first thing I did was called up the one person I used to drink with back then. And I immediately went to meet him, at work, and he was like, "Nah, let's go drink it off. There's nothing wrong with you." Keep in mind, they gave me meds. They gave me meds that same day. But instead of me using my meds, I went straight drinking. Now, that's how fucked up I was back then. I used to drink to the point where I didn't care about my health. I had added so much weight. I know I'm going into the physical now, but it also affected my mental because I was going through a lot of things mentally and I refused to deal with them. The easiest way not to deal with them was to drink, was to get high because I didn't want to deal. I didn't want to have to think. I didn't want to, go into that dark place in my mind. But it was easier to, keep throwing back them bottles. And I remember there was a point in my life where I wasn't even getting like tipsy anymore. I was just drinking. Like I would still feel all the lethargy. I would still feel all the queasiness. I'm not a throw up girly. Like I didn't used to throw up. No. I've never blanked out. Drunk. Thank God. But I have had alcohol poisoning twice. I know some people are like, how do you have it and you survive? Honestly, I don't know. It has to be God. Because it's like, God was like, you're not going to off yourself. Twice I had alcohol poisoning. Twice. And those are the only times I know I threw up. I threw everything in me. But did I stop? No. I kept drinking because there was always an excuse or the other. Even when I went to rehab in 2020 for being clinically depressed, as soon as I came out, I had meds I was meant to be on. I was told not to use alcohol with these meds, but you see me with a glass of wine here and there. I couldn't take hard liquor anymore because it started to irritate the fuck out of me. I was like, yeah, because back in the day, anybody knew I was in a 7-year long relationship with vodka, my Russian lover. Oh my God. I used to be the vodka girlie. I would drink it straight. I would drink it with chasers. I would drink it in my sleep. It was always vodka every time. And because back then I was always, at one event or the other, even most lounge managers and whatnot, they knew a bottle of vodka for Big Man. That was my thing. But that was the thing that was actually killing me. And I didn't know. So for so many years, I kept drinking. I always made an excuse for why I was drinking. Especially when I came out of rehab, there was always an excuse because I still wasn't ready to deal. Especially when I came out of rehab, I wasn't ready to deal with the thoughts that I knew I needed to heal. And I, I kept doing like a bottle here, a bottle there. I remember my mom was around during this period. And the day she left, or the day I thought she was going to leave, I literally went straight to ShopRite and I got 3 bottles of wine. Because when she was around, I behaved myself. I was just doing like maybe when I go out and whatnot. It's not like she didn't know. I never heard anything about me, still don't. But I just didn't want her to feel worried about me. But literally the day I thought she was leaving, I went to go buy 3 bottles. And then she came back. I was like, oh, she can't go again now, that she'll go later. And she opens the fridge and she sees these 3 bottles and she is immediately sad because she's like, I thought we'd get him better. Now, one thing about me, I don't know about y'all, I hate to disappoint my mom. I'm not saying I haven't had to disappoint her intentionally sometimes, but when it's stuff that is avoidable, I hate to see that look on her face because she's not the kind of person that forces you or forces things on you. She will just tell you how she feels and just hopes that you use your own common sense and do better, basically. And that day I saw that look on her face. Same way I saw the look on her face the first time and the only time I ever told her a lie ever. And I felt so bad. And I'm like, okay, maybe I need to deal with this. But I wasn't ready. So instead I stopped doing wine, I started doing only origin beer. Because my thought was it's herbal, so it is healthy. I swear the lies we tell ourselves here. And because I was blowing trees more, if you don't know what blowing trees is, it's like sky high, talking to Jack. I was doing that more. So I wasn't really missing the alcohol as such. But then when I decided to start doing the inner work on its own, without me even mentally thinking about it, I quit drinking on its own. Like it took me a month to realize, oh, I don't drink anymore. I love that feeling so much. Now, physically, as I mentioned earlier, I added so much weight. Now, the weight was compounded with depression, emotional eating, and a lot of drinking. At my heaviest, I was a size 26, and this was during the busiest period of my life when I was working, doing back to back events and what have you. I was always drinking because I remember there was this period where we had to do four club tours back to back every night for 4 days. Like there was barely any sleep. If I was sleeping, it was probably highest 2 hours. We're back out, and there's alcohol everywhere. So the only way I could get through it was a packet of cigarettes and a bottle of drink. It was always both in my hand, and I was because I needed to keep up. I needed to, do a lot. Now, if I had known that my boss then was on other things that was keeping this person, I would have not tried to match up because what the fuck? It was a lot on me, and I added so much weight. Like I was big, big. Now, keep in mind, I always loved myself at every stage of my life. But when I look back at those pictures, I'm like, I had no reason to be that big. Like, I've always been a big girly, like this kind of big, busty, big behind, and what have you. But I'd never been that big where I had no neck. Literally had no neck. And that was, sometimes I sit back and I think about the men I was intimate with during that period, and I'm like, they must have really loved my character because it was obvious I didn't love myself in that point. And then again, men will sleep with just about anything. So it's not really about them at the end of the day. It was about me making the right choices. So, and it wasn't helping that I was also blowing trees. You get the munchies, you eat. It's like a very bad cycle. So it really fucked me up real bad, And also physically, I was dark, like my skin was very dark. Like I have nothing wrong if that's my original complexion. But it was the kind of dark that made you think I was deteriorating. My nails stopped growing, my hair was receding. It was so bad. Like a lot of things. And then I had a lot of like weird ass spots all over my body. It was really bad. Like I'm sure something was going wrong internally, and I just ignored it because, as I said, I was depressed. I was dealing with a lot. It was a lot on me. And let's never talk about emotional struggles with heartbreaks and all of that. Like I'm not making excuses. I'm just letting you know these are the things that compounded into a bigger issue. I'm moving on to emotional issues. On a sexual part, how being intoxicated affected me is the fact that my judgment wasn't the best when it came to people I was intimate with. In the sense whereby, I needed more distractions. I was getting high, I was getting drunk, it wasn't doing what I needed enough, so I decided to up it with male distractions. Now, I'm not saying I was bumping uglies with just about anything that moved, no, but there are some people in my life I probably would never have been intimate with if I wasn't intoxicated. Like, I probably would never have had anything to do with if I wasn't intoxicated, if I wasn't high. Because it's not like the sex was great. It's not like there's nobody there's no best I ever had till date. There's no best I ever had. There were good ones, there were fun ones, but there were mostly ones I just, had to get through because I was dealing with things I was not ready to deal with. So for me, it was just a buddy. You're a buddy. You're a buddy. You counted. I've said this so many times. Buddy, you counted. It was what it was at that point, but it wasn't something where, oh, this person is so amazing. Oh, I can't. No. No. Most of it was bearable shit. Oh, God. And the reason I went through all those shit is because I was intoxicated. I was trying to distract myself from my issues, from who I am, from what I was going through. And of course, when you're having intimate relations with someone who isn't someone you're in love with or emotionally attached to, it don't make sense. Let's be honest. It don't. We can excuse and say whatever you want. It doesn't make sense. You're just trying to run away from your problems. And I did that. I know that. I can admit it. So stop lying to yourself, honey. Mm-mm. Now, spiritually, see, even the Bible says, a little bit of wine. It also says do not get drunk on wine, but be drunk in the spirit. Now, it's because when you are intoxicated, Hearing from God is a little difficult. Hearing the Holy Spirit's voice, very difficult. And someone like me who's always been spiritually inclined since I was a kid, actually, even though I tried to run away from it, I ran. Oh God, I ran. Alcohol was what was helping me, stay running. Getting high, I remember then I'll talk about, oh, when I blow trees, when I'm high, I'm close to the most high. But I wasn't doing it in the spiritual, reverence way you should. Because yes, cannabis is used for as a teacher on your spiritual journey. It's meant to be a teacher. And if you treat it with respect, you would not abuse it, you would not overuse it, you would understand that it's just there to open your eye or open the veil a little for you to learn what you need to, and you keep it pushing. It's not something you're meant to wake up in the morning, first thing is you're rolling. This is before breakfast, we have coffee, because that was me. We have coffee, you're rolling. You're about to have your first meal of the day, you're rolling. You've already rolled one down for after the meal because you might be a little too full and you need to reduce. Those who know, you know. And then you want to take a nap in the afternoon, you roll. And then you wake up from the nap, you continue the one you were on, and then you're thinking of, oh, what am I going to eat tonight? As I'm thinking of dinner, rolling another one. That's abuse. I abused it. I can say that now with all sincerity. I did abuse it. I did, and I didn't give up blowing trees until this year. A few days to my 40th birthday, and the way it happened to me till tomorrow is still a fucking miracle. Because I used to tell everybody that cares to hear that I'm going to be blowing trees till I am 80. I've always said that, oh, I'm always going to be blowing trees. And I know so much that my mother didn't like it. As I said, there are some things we wouldn't agree on, but I had my reasons then. Also, I thought, I did the whole medical, oh, it's good for anxiety, it's this, it's that, which is true. But the reason why people depend on it is because they are not dealing with the issues, the internal issues that will make you stop using. And that's what I'm about to go into now. Now, when I quit blowing trees, because I already quit drinking, like full on, cold turkey drinking. I quit it in last year. I didn't even realize I quit because it was like a month after I quit. I was like, oh, I've been going out now for like over a month. And every time I go out, I'm only ordering water or juice or highest malt. I never went, close to alcohol anymore. It's not like anything. It's not like I woke up one day and said, I want to stop drinking. Nope, it just kind of stopped. And I didn't understand. I was trying to figure out what happened that made me stop. But I wasn't really dealing with that because I was also, at this point, dealing with like a little bit of a heartbreak. And when I was going through that, I was also trying to battle being depressed again. I didn't want to go down that valley anymore. So I decided to take my healing more seriously. I did more introspection, more shadow work. I needed to deal with what was making me feel certain ways. The anxiety, the pain I was feeling, the trauma that I knew that kept coming up, my heart and everything. And the more I went deeper into healing, the more I started to discover more about myself. That somewhere earlier this year, I remember I told my mom, I said, I want to take a 6-week blowing trees break, 6-week smoking break. Anybody that knows, THC stays in your body for 6 weeks. So I wanted to detox. So I thought. And I did the 6 weeks. And I remember I thought I was going to be so like fiending for it, because this was during a period where shit for me was just hellish. Like I was going through a lot. Like, yeah, it was a lot. But for some reason, I stayed strong. Like, I didn't have a need to want to smoke. I didn't have a need. If anything, I started to hear God more. I started to have dreams and remember. For a long time, I used to struggle to remember my dreams. Sometimes I just remember bits and pieces, unless it was something where it was like a message from God and I couldn't avoid it. But you see, between the 6 weeks, I was clear as fuck. I was documenting, like my dream journal just they fill up every day. I'm like, some days I have like 3-4 dreams before I wake up. I'm like, god damn, I started to hear well. I started to see well. My intuition was literally getting better. You could hardly pull one past me. And I noticed that people that were in my life when I was still indulging, during the period when I was sober, I started to see them. And I'm like, oh my God. So this thing was just clouding my eyes from actually seeing the people I was dealing with. I remember the last time I went out clubbing, anything before I left Lagos. I was still sober. And I went out that day, first time in my entire life. Entire life. Going out fully sober. No drinking, no nothing. Just me in the club with a bottle of water. And I could see everyone. And I'm like, "Eee, is this is this what is this what I've been like managing all this while?" Trust me, it's like holding a black light in a porn room. It's not pretty. It's not pretty. And I was just like, yeah. But I realized something. I was the most energetic after the night was done. I was the most chilled. I got back home. I still cooked. I think I got back home around 3 a.m., 3, 4 a.m. I made myself a meal because I didn't eat before leaving. I was so chill. I slept, I woke up, no hangover, no headaches, no nothing. I was up early, like nothing happened. I was back to my regular programming. And I knew I enjoyed that period, but just at the end, literally the last day of my 6 week break, some things happened to me that were so heavy, I couldn't wait. I just went back. I was like, oh, my 6 weeks over, let me go, you know. And then during this period, I literally moved within that period. There was a lot that happened even when I moved. There was a lot I was going through. So it gave me more of an excuse to continue growing trees. And I did this for a couple of months. And then my birthday was closing in. And I remember at the end of June, I fell seriously ill. My whole body, I thought it was the end. Like I was ready to say my goodbyes. It was that bad. It was so bad that even the handful of friends I have, by handful I mean just two, 3, were always reaching out to me like, go to the hospital. Like, nope. Because if you know me, I've said it so many times, I don't use drugs anymore. I haven't used drugs in over 2 years. I am a herbalist who believes in herbs and healing. And I did that when I was ill. I was like, you know what? I'm going to make this my herbs. Yoruba people will call it agbo. I'm going to mix my herbs. I'm going to drink it and I'm going to be fine. And God did come through for me. But during this period, there were a lot of things that I also kind of saw, kind of heard. And I knew that my life was not going to remain the same after that illness. Now, after the illness, we entered July. Literally the first week of July, a few days just for my birthday, I noticed that every time I smoked, I didn't feel high, but I was irritated. Nothing was like giving joy like it used to. So 2 days to my birthday, I just stopped unconsciously. My thinking then was maybe after my birthday. I'm about to turn 40. I've never been 40 before. And then I turned 40. And then days went by. And I still didn't want to. And then more days went by. And I'm like, am I done? You know what happened during that period when I was sick? I had time to deal with why I kept wanting to smoke. All the excuses I gave myself, the healing I was refusing to do, the inner work that I was avoiding, that was causing the anxiety, the fear. I dealt with it while thinking these were my last days, I'm about to go. See how crazy and ironic this life is. I thought I was dying. And I decided to heal when I thought I was exiting. And then when I didn't exit, I'm like, oh, okay. And I realized that all my drinking, smoking was a crutch. I was holding on to these things because I didn't want to deal with the inner trauma, the pain, the things I needed to heal, do the deep shadow work and, just mess with that, with that darkness and put them in their place and be like, bitch, I'm your master. You ain't gonna rule me, I'll rule you. And I wouldn't lie to you, it's the best thing that has ever happened to me. I started to get healthier. As you can see, I'm a fine girl. I look younger than I was when I was drinking. I'm in my 40s, but when I was in my 20s, I looked like I was in my 40s, if not 50s. Back then, people used to ask me, I wasn't even nearing giving birth or nothing, and they're like, oh, how many kids you got? And I'm like, kids? But you see me now, you're like, oh, are you Gen Z? That's one of my favorite things here. Gen Z actually think we're age mates. I'm like, yes, I don't care what you say. You might say I look my age. I don't give a fuck. But this actually happens to me. They go like, nah, you can't be more than like 26, 27. Thank you. I'm sober is why. You know, one thing they don't tell you about indulging in all these things is how it ages you. You would see a young kid in your 20s looking like they're in their 40s or 50s because they're consuming so much, you know. It's crazy how the things that can actually kill you are legal. You you go on TV, they're advertising alcohol, even though they say not for people under 18, but let's be for real. We know that there are 15, 16-year-olds that are drinking. I never even tasted alcohol till I was in my early 20s by choice. That's what I said. I never did because I guess, some of us came with our common sense working. Okay, I kid. I'm just saying. I just never found the appeal until I was in my 20s. Same with having sex, I didn't find the appeal until I was in my 20s, my mid 20s actually. It just was not my thing. I didn't start smoking until 2013. And I grew up around people that were always doing all this. Even before I started drinking, I was hanging around people that were always doing all this. They used to get mad at me then when we go out and I'm asking for malt. They're like, what's wrong with you drinking? And I remember the last time I went out this year, and I was hanging with some friends. One of them was so upset with me that I was refusing to drink and I wasn't doing shots. And I'm like, I just want water. And he's like, I'm not going to get you water. What the fuck you mean you're drinking water? I'm like, why are you upset? And I understand better now that why people feel that way. It's like a projection. Because we're all mirrors to each other, right? And when you see someone like me who you believe must be wild and out there and you want to be wild and out there, and I'm not trying to be wild and out there, you start judging yourself by judging me. And I'm just like, yo, do you. I don't have a problem with you indulging. This is my life path. This is my choice. I'm living this life for me. I don't give a fuck about anybody else around me. And that is how we should live our lives. We shouldn't have to do stuff because everybody's doing it. I've never had to do anything because everybody's doing it. Every choice I've ever made was because I wanted to. And the lessons I learned for them were lessons I needed to learn. We all learn our lessons differently. When I used to smoke, nobody that knew me liked it, but I didn't give a fuck about them. As in those who knew me growing up, they didn't like it, but I didn't give a fuck about them. Because it wasn't their journey at that point. I was doing this for me to learn what I needed from it. And I did learn. I used to tell people I'm the shortest cigarette smoking person like in this life, that shortest time ever smoked cigarette, and I did the most because when I used to smoke cigarettes, it was nothing less than 2 packs a day. But the day I quit smoking cigarettes, it was cold turkey. I never went back. And people were like, "Don't you have I never had feeling for it because I wasn't addicted. I know how to abuse things, but at the same time, I don't have that nature where I'm addicted to anything. I'm one of those people. Maybe it's my neurospiciness, I don't know. But I'm just one of those people that I really can't be loyal to overusing anything. Anything. I'm like, yeah, no. The only thing I probably am addicted to is chicken in all forms. Is that an addiction? I don't know. But that's probably the only thing. And chocolate. Ooh, chocolate. Talking about chocolate, my favorite chocolate right now is Torrin. I know I'm going off, but I just remembered because I have one right here that I'm going to eat after I finish eating this. It's the dark chocolate. Ooh, if you know it, you know it. All right. Anyways, I do hope that me sharing this part of me, this experience of mine, would also do something beneficial for you. If you still need to do that inner work in some parts of your life. Because let's be honest, most of us that used to drink and all of that, or those that still do, especially the heavy drinkers, you're not doing it because you love doing it. You're doing it because you're trying to escape from something. It's not every time you're getting wasted or you're doing the most, or once you know your limits and just a little here and there, it's all well and good. But if you're like the person I described myself to be, who was always doing the most, drinking, always getting so drunk, blackout drunk, every day drinking, every day. Like I remember when we moved out of our former house back in 2014, and my mom had to clear my room. I wasn't around, I was busy. And I remember she took a picture and sent me bottles. Most of them still had like some liquor in them, and I know how that broke her heart. If you're that kind of person, then it's time to do it, whatever it is you're trying to avoid, because there's more to the issue than you are letting on. And on that note, we're just gonna call it a wrap. And until we meet again, beautiful souls, may you walk in love, rise in truth, and shine as your highest self. And remember, the best rhythm is the one your soul dances to. Stay glowing and stay loving you. Ashe.